Hey y'all, welcome back to Homemade Simple. If we've not met before, I'm Lori. I'm really glad that you're here today. I had talked about last week how I had been sick for almost the entire month of February. And if you've ever had an experience like that, you know that 1 month of being sick pretty much makes you sick and tired of being unhealthy. And so I want to share with you some of the things that I have begun doing to have more healthy meals and more healthy food integrated into our family's diet without crushing the budget and spending way too much money. So I have some pointers for you about how to get yourself started on a healthier eating plan, and also I'm going to share with you some of the meals that my family and I have enjoyed this week that have been a lot less processed and a lot more whole food oriented, but have not broken the bank. So let's get started. If you have been around for a while, you know that I have sort of a different philosophy about diet plans and talking about being on a diet and about restrictive eating. I do not participate in any of that. I used to, but because some family experiences that we have had to go through, I have completely done a 180 on that, and I just really don't participate in the diet mentality or in trying to restrict food or cut out entire macronutrients in my diet. So the approach that I try to take is one that is more natural and health focused instead of restriction focused. So I just wanted up front to tell you, this is not a video about how to lose weight. This is only a video to help you in implementing more nutritious and healthier foods into your family's diet without feeling like you were having to sacrifice your entire grocery budget. I know that food is really expensive, and I know that it's really easy to sort of gravitate toward the cheapest option. And honestly, in a lot of my videos, that's sort of the approach that I've been taking. I don't love to eat processed foods. I don't like to eat a lot of heavy, high carb foods on a regular basis. But what I have discovered is if my focus on this channel is going to be frugal budget meals, a lot of that food is going to be food that is not completely in line with what's best for my body to operate at optimal health. I've gotten away from a lot of the things that we used to eat before I started this channel, and I have begun implementing a lot of different kinds of foods in order to try to help everyone reduce their budget as much as possible. And I do think that there is a really good place for that. But I think for me personally, where that's sort of gotten me is not feeling great, not having optimal health, and a lot of times I will feel like my stomach is uncomfortable and I'm not as active as I would like to be. I don't have as much energy. And I want to correct those parts of my health story without having to sacrifice the budget and frugality part of this channel. And so I'm going to try as much as I can to have like an integrated approach where we focus on frugal meals, but we also focus on how we can make those meals as nutrient dense as possible without sacrificing the overall budget in the process. So I have a couple of pointers that I sat down and thought about. How can I implement better meals? And when I say better, I mean like more nutrient dense meals, more nutrition packed meals, and still not have to go and up our budget by 50%. That's sort of what I was going for when I made my list. And so I'm just going to run through this list with you. It's got 5 points about ways that we can try to save as much as possible while still having good, filling, nutritious food available for our family. So number one is we need to start with a whole foods approach. I know that if you go to the store and you pick up a box of snack cakes, I know that the price point on those is going to be less than if you pick up a bag of apples. But if we think long term, the value for that money is unquestionably better if we pick the apples to begin with. And so I think a little bit of a long-term approach has to be in our mind, and we have to think about, well, if I buy these apples, yes, it might cost $2 more initially, but I'm going to get a lot more benefit in the long run. Not only health-wise, but also it's going to be a more filling option than a snack cake. So you might get 10 apples in a bag for $2.99, and you might get 10 snack cakes in a box for $1.50. But when you sit and really analyze what you're getting for that money, paying more for the apples really long term is going to help you to be fuller longer and help your body to be more active and more energized throughout the day. So there are definite benefits to choosing the whole foods options whenever we can. And so if we go into the store thinking about what whole foods options can I find that's going to meet my family's nutritional needs, but also could still be considered a frugal or cheaper option, those are going to be the things that we can gravitate toward, and that will help us to build our meal plan around whole and good nutritious foods without having to pay $50 extra per meal. I think in our minds we think, well, yes, I would love to eat healthier, but I can't afford it. But what I want to try to do, and what I want to try to help us all do, is to go into that process thinking, okay, I know that this might be a little more difficult, and I know that I might have to think a little more broadly, but I know that I can do this, and I know that there are a lot of options available, and I need to see what is the best option as far as the budget goes and nutritional wise, and we can combine both of those ideas and have a really good and fulfilling meal plan without having to double our grocery budget. One way that we can do that is to make sure that we're paying attention to what produce is in season at this time. So obviously we all love to eat fresh strawberries and watermelon, and those things are always going to be on my wish list as far as my favorite fruits. But sometimes in the middle of winter, a pound of strawberries is $6, and that's just really not a reasonable thought for me to go and spend $6 on maybe 12 strawberries when I can spend $6 and get an entire day's worth of produce for the entire family if I just choose a little bit wiser and if I'm more mindful about the timing of the different things that I have on my list. If you really have to have some strawberries and it is the middle of November, the best thing for us to do would be look in the freezer section and get the frozen options of the produce when it is out of season. It's just as nourishing, it's just as nutrient dense, but you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to get those nutrients into your family's meal plan. So make sure that when you go, you're looking at the in-season produce, and then also keep a check and a tab on all of the sales items across your community. So there might be 5 different grocery stores that you are within 20 minutes of. You can just combine all of those trips and try to navigate through all of the different grocery stores that you need to go to in order to fill your pantry and your refrigerator with the best produce that you can find at the least expensive price point possible. Next up is something that I think is either going to hit you or not, and I think that there's a big divide, probably especially in this community about how we feel about organic foods. I know that some people have never bought an organic item in their entire life. They don't know why you even would think about doing that, and that's completely fine. And then there's others here that probably go all organic all the time, and everything that they purchase is going to have that organic label, or they don't feel good about giving it to their family. And either way that you land on that is perfectly fine, and there's no moral consequence to that. But I will just encourage you that if you're over on this side and you're always buying organic, I think it might be good for us to consider the benefit versus cost analysis of those choices. So yes, there are some consequences to buying conventional foods, and in particular conventional produce. I completely understand the fear associated with different kinds of pesticides, and especially giving them to our children whose bodies are growing and developing, and we want to be very mindful about the things that we give to our children and the foods that we offer for them to eat. But I will also say that there is a lot of money to be made in the organic food industry, and sometimes it can be more of a ploy to get us to spend more rather than an invitation to have healthier and more nutritious foods. So there are some things that maybe you just are going to have a red line and you're not going to sacrifice organic options, such as if you research the Dirty Dozen and you think, well, these 12 items, I just don't feel comfortable buying the conventional versions of those fruits and vegetables, so I'm just going to, that's my red line, I'm not willing to change, I'm not willing to go past that. And that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and you can fit that into your budget. But for me, whenever I think about organic options, I really like the thought of buying organic, and I really like the thought of being able to supply organic options. And also, as a consumer, I like to encourage farmers to produce organic vegetables and fruits. So I do feel like I would like to participate in the organic movement, but I also want to try not to be so dogmatic about myself and my choices that I feel like I'm doing wrong or I am failing my family when I buy a regular bag of apples at the store. I'm that way. It's very easy for me to feel like, well, I failed because I didn't do the best. But sometimes I can't do the best. Sometimes the best that I can do is just sort of middle of the road. And that's okay. And I have to understand that I need to give myself grace and opportunities to make good choices for my family without feeling guilty that it's not the best choice. So in my mind, sometimes I try to think, okay, I have an orange that has been grown conventionally, and then I have an organic cookie that I could feed my family. Which one is better in that scenario? Well, obviously it's going to be better nutritional wise, minerals and vitamins wise, for me to choose the fruit, even though it might have a pesticide on it, and that's okay. And I've also found that there is a cleaner on Amazon. The company actually sent me one of these products, and all you do is put some water in a bowl, put your produce in, and put this unit in that's waterproof, turn it on, and add a little bit of salt to the bowl, and it is going to filter out a lot of the dirt and pesticides that are on the fruit so that it doesn't get into our family's systems as much as it would if we just ran it under the sink and called it good. So I'll link that down below. It's a small little item. It doesn't take up a lot of room, but I think that it is a good option to have in our kitchens so that we're able to choose conventional items without having a fear associated with what might happen if we get pesticides in our system. We've been talking a lot about produce and ways that we can save with that, but for my last 2 points, I want to talk to you about high quality meats. And I first of all want to say that the meats that are available in our stores are, for the most part, very safe and healthy and nutritious. So whatever meat option that you choose, it's most likely going to be very good and safe and nutritious for your family. I will say, with an exception, some of those marinated meats and different pre-made options probably are not going to be the highest on the nutrient level, and probably are going to have some ingredients that, if we had an option, we would choose to avoid. So just keep an eye out for that and be mindful if you do buy those pre-marinated products. Do a quick label check and see exactly what is included in that. That's a good way for you to decide, is this worth the time savings, or can I just go and choose my own ingredients and marinate that myself? But for the most part, if you are choosing just a package of meat that is just processed minimally from the meat packer and then sent to the store, a lot of that is going to be very nutritious and very healthy. But I will say that the higher quality that you can get your protein, the better off you're going to be in the long run. There is a lot of additives in some of the ground beef options that you see at the store that might be like in those plastic tubs of maybe 5 pounds at Aldi or at Sam's. Those really big ones that look sort of, maybe you know what I'm talking about. It's just like a 5-pound plastic container of ground beef, let's say. Well, there are some things that are added to that are not really meat. And so in your mind, it would be really good if you can say, okay, what is the least and most minimally processed meat that I can afford for my weekly budget and meal plan. I really try to get organic ground beef, and the reason that I do that is because I have experienced the difference between getting that cheapest option at Aldi and then paying $1 or $2 more and getting the organic option, and I can really see that there is an increase in the food availability in those two products. So a lot of water and a lot of fat might be in the cheaper option, and a lot less of those two would be included in the organic option. Maybe you can't go for organic meat, and again, like I said before, that's fine, and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just trying to be mindful of what you're paying for. So if I'm paying $4 for a 1-pound package of ground beef at Aldi, and a third of it is really going to be cooked out in water and fat, or I can pay $1 or $1.50 more for 1 pound of organic beef, and I don't even have to drain it because there is no added water or fat to it, or not a lot of fat, not to the point where you have to drain it. I really think that in the long run, we might be getting more for our money when we purchase the higher quality meat. So that's just something to be mindful of, and just try it for yourself once or twice and see what you think, and then you can make an educated and informed decision about what's best for you and for your family. For chicken, they will always say how much of a solution is added to the chicken on the package. It's required to say that. So I have seen some as low as 3% added solution, which I think is just like a saline water. I don't know why they do that. I'm sure there's a reason, and I'm sure one of y'all knows, so maybe you could tell us. But I've seen some that are 15%, 18%. And so if you just do the math, you're paying $3.99 a pound for that 15% or 18% of saline water. Well, I don't want to be paying them for saline water. I would much rather be paying them for a chicken breast if I'm going to be buying chicken. And all that's going to do is cook out in the long run. So sometimes the higher quality meat that might be a little more expensive at checkout really is going to end up going further in your family's meal plan and food budget and giving more nutrients per dollar. So that's just something to play around with and to experiment with a little bit in the available options at your stores. Which one is better, which one is the cheapest, and which one might be the best one to land on as a regular food purchase for your family. And then speaking of meats and food in general, sometimes the grocery store is just not the best option. And sometimes it's really good for us to just sit and think about what are ways that we can go about getting food for our families that are outside of the grocery store options. And I tell you the reason that I say this is because I have found several good options for us to source food from other options other than the grocery store. So, for example, y'all know that I have a milk cow and we have a lot of extra milk. And there are times when I can go to a family in the area and say, I have some milk, and they have chickens that they grow themselves. And so we just make an even swap. 1 gallon of milk for 1 chicken that they have grown and processed, and I just put it in the freezer and there it is available. I don't have to put out any extra money for that chicken. And that saves me a lot of money. And that's really helpful for the budget. And it's really helpful to have a community of people in your area that you have reached out to and made connections with. Maybe there's a farmer that has bees and has extra honey. And maybe you have a skill that you can offer for them in order to trade your skill and service for their quart of honey. Being willing to think outside the box is really beneficial in order to get the most for our money and for our resources. And sometimes people might think that's crazy, nobody would ever do that. But whatever it is you're thinking about trading, I'm pretty sure that people have done it before. And I'm pretty sure that anybody who has an excess of eggs or milk or chickens or fruits and vegetables, anyone who has an abundance of those things is very happy when somebody comes to them and says, hey, would you think about trading me this that I have for the eggs that you have available? Every trade doesn't have to be a monetary trade. And I think that the more we grow a community around our family and around our neighborhood, the better off we will all be whenever things are getting tighter and tighter and the budgets are getting more and more restricted, and we just really can't stretch any more money out of the budget. But we could think about something that we have available to us, or a skill that we have that might be a good offer to someone else for the resources that they have available that could benefit our family. So just thinking outside the box might really help in the long run to get our family the good, nourishing food that we want them to have without having to double our grocery budget. I hope some of those tips are helpful to you. I feel like I really over-talked most of them, and I'm sorry about that. I have a tendency to over-explain. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about some of the meals that we had this week and give you a little bit of an idea of the things that I have been thinking about and the things that I have been focusing on this week and this month. I'm already feeling better, and I'm already feeling a little bit more energized and a lot less sluggish and sick feeling. Not only because I'm getting better from the sicknesses that we had, but just in general, my overall health, I just feel like it's on an upswing. And I think that's really just a good indication that food really can be our medicine. So I just wanted to go over some of the ideas about why I chose some of the meals that I did this week and how I went about preparing them in the most healthy and health conscious way possible. So I had a head of cabbage that I had actually bought to make some sauerkraut, but I just never got around to it. So it was needing to be used, and I thought that this was a really good opportunity for me to get this cabbage used up and also have a good, nourishing, filling meal full of vitamins and minerals. So I just chopped up this whole head of cabbage and put it in a skillet. I also added some carrots, and I chopped up an apple and an onion. I wanted to incorporate all of the vegetables and fruits and nutritious things that I had in our kitchen. I wanted to incorporate all of them as much as I can. Smoked sausage, that's not really going to be a high quality meat, but I thought that it was a good enough option for this day. I probably, if I had had some thawed out ground beef, would have used that instead, but I just didn't have it thawed out. It was still in the freezer. So this was a good enough option that would give us the protein that we needed and also give us all of these vegetables all at one time. This skillet meal actually was super easy to put together. It did take a little bit of prep work to get all of the vegetables chopped and ready to go. But as far as a one skillet healthy, nutritious meal, it really was easy to put together, and it really did taste good. Next time I'll probably put in ground beef or ground chicken, but for what we had available to us, this was a really good, nourishing, warm meal for a chilly afternoon, and I think it turned out really good, and it just gave us sort of a good start to the week and a good boost to all of our vitamins and mineral needs. So focusing on a large number of vegetables has sort of been my focus, and limiting the amount of heavy carbs and flour-based products has, I think, really helped. So none of that in this meal. It was all really just protein and vegetables. So that was a good start to the week. Now let's move on to our next meal. Next up, I made hamburger steaks with a little bit of brown gravy and sauteed onions, and I baked some broccoli in the oven. I'm sorry that my kitchen is so messy. Maybe y'all can just ignore that part. I got frozen broccoli and put some olive oil and some salt on it and baked it in the oven on 400 degrees for probably about 25 to 30 minutes. This is one of our favorite ways to have broccoli. It makes it really tasty, brings out the really good flavor of broccoli without it being like overpowering. And any kind of vegetable that you can cook in the oven with this method, it just seems to work with so many different options. So I'm going to throw this broccoli in the oven, and then I put together some hamburger patties. This is the organic beef from Costco. I have been very pleased with it, and it is less than $5 a pound, which is a really good deal, and it just seems to be really high quality protein. I'm just going to salt and pepper it a little bit and then form it into patties. I'm just going to cook them in the skillet and allow them to cook until they are well done
it's important to me to make sure the hamburger patties are well done. And also I'm gonna saute those onions in a little bit of olive oil. And also I decided to make a little bit of brown gravy. I've never made brown gravy before, and it a little bit turned into a disaster because of the clumps. Y'all, if you've been here long, know that I really struggle with clump-free gravies. So this one was a total fail on that regard, but it tasted really good. So I didn't really know how to make brown gravy, but it's really easy. So you just take about 2 cups of beef broth and 2 tablespoons of flour and mix that together really well, and then season it if you want to with a little bit of salt and pepper, and cook it on the stove in the skillet for as long as you need to until it's nice and thick. I kept adding more broth because mine was a little thick, but I think it ended up being about 2 cups of broth that I added. Although the brown gravy was a little bit of extra work, it really was worth it, and I think you should give it a try. I did just buy the beef broth because I don't really know how to make beef broth yet. I mean, I have the concept down, but I don't often have beef bones to make my own stock with, so we just got some from the grocery store. In order for it not to have clumped so bad, I really should have mixed the flour with a little bit of the beef stock, and then it would not have made such a clumpy mess. But it ended up fine. It didn't affect the taste any, and my family doesn't really care if it's clumpy. So this meal came together well, and even though it looks like sort of a diner meal, it was really healthy, filling, and nutritious, and it was perfect for wanting a comfort food meal without having to sacrifice health and nutrition. For our last healthy meal example this week, I'm going to put together some barbecue chicken for barbecue chicken baked potatoes. I'm just going to use the crock pot. I'm going to just top all of this chicken with plenty of barbecue sauce and turn the crock pot onto high because I did it a little later in the day. You can put it on low if you have all day to cook it, and that way it won't be overdone. I washed my potatoes. I'm just going to coat them with olive oil and sprinkle some salt. I do that just really because I like salt, and I like to have it on the edge of my potato whenever I eat the skin of the potato, but you can skip that part if you don't want to. I cooked the potatoes in the oven at 300 degrees all afternoon, so it probably cooked for about 3.5 or 4 hours. If you're in a hurry, you can just up the temperature. After 4 hours, my chicken was done also, so I'm just going to sort of shred the chicken and put all of the toppings on the baked potatoes and be done. This is a super easy weeknight meal, but the base of it is a nutritious baked potato, and depending on what you put onto the potato, it can really be a filling and nutritious option that is going to be friendly to the budget, but also not so light that you go to bed hungry. So I'm just going to top mine with some butter and cheese. I'm going to top it with plenty of the barbecue chicken, some sour cream, and I also had some cilantro. I love cilantro, so I added it. I know that it's sort of a controversial ingredient, so you can leave it off if you don't like it. And then just squirt a little bit of extra barbecue sauce on the top, and you're good to go. And you've got a super quick and easy hands-off meal that is going to be a family favorite for sure. But it's also really packed with plenty of protein and nutrition.
Well, thanks for watching today's video. I hope that these ideas and thoughts were helpful for you to just sort of flesh out some of the things that I've been thinking about as far as healthy foods on a budget and how I'm going to go about doing some of our meal plans in the future. I hope that you will be willing to share your favorite whole food ideas with us in the comments below. And I hope that you will be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so that you can be notified when new videos are added. This is sort of going to be my focus for the next several weeks of videos, healthy, nutritious options that we can feed our family on a budget. I hope that you will be willing to share some of your ideas, and if you have any requests, I would love to get those in the comments below as well. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you stay well. I love you, and I will see you again next time.